My fiancée texted, "Don't wait up." I replied, "Tell Mason I said hi." Her friends sent me the receipts, and everything blew up. 8:07 p.m. Her text was 3 words: "Don't wait up." No emoji. No love you. Nothing that used to mean anything. I typed back on purpose, "Tell Mason I said hi." Sent it. Not because I knew Mason existed. Because I wanted to see how she'd react. 3 texts in 40 seconds. "What are you talking about?" "Alex, stop. Call me." Then a full minute of nothing. Then, "Where did you hear that?" That's the sound you feel before the world slides. Panic says more than guilt ever could. I stood in my kitchen and watched the little gray dots of typing as if they were fuses burning. We'd been together 4 years. Engaged for 9 months. I'm 30, Emma's 28. We had a slow Saturday rhythm. Coffee at 9, walk the dog at 11, plan a move. We had small keepsakes, 2 chipped mugs, a scratched record player, names on a lease. 1 week of bad choices didn't erase 4 years in a single heartbeat, but does make them look thin. For 3 weeks, her late meetings stacked up. For 3 weeks, her phone went face down whenever I came in. For 3 weeks, I told myself stories that kept my chest quiet. Then I found a receipt in a jeans pocket she'd left on the couch. Sibling, 2:03 a.m., $63.40. No name, no explanation. I shoved it back because confrontation is terrifying and curiosity is patient. Curiosity won. I hired a private investigator. It cost $2,400 and about every last piece of my pride. He sent the first text Tuesday, got visuals, then photos, Emma and a man leaving Sibling, him with his arm around her lower back, her hand on his wrist. 3 separate nights in 7, not months. 1 week. 1 week of repeated choices. I didn't explode. I planned. I wanted the conversation to hurt in a way that matched the betrayal. Precise, true, non-theatrical. So I sat at the table with the laptop open, photos queued, my hand steady in a way that surprised me. She walked in smelling like citrus and someone else's cologne. She asked, "What's wrong?" Like she'd walked into a badly staged movie. I clicked the first photo. Her face drained, like chalk pulled from color. "You hired a PI?" she whispered. "I hired a PI because dinner receipts don't add up," I said. Calm was a weapon. Anger is loud. I needed quiet that cut. She started with the old script. "It's not what it looks like. He's just a coworker. You're being insecure." I listened until the words ran out, and then I asked, "How long?" 5 days, she answered. 5 days is a clean number. Small enough to deny. Big enough to mean something. 5 nights is still choices. It's not a drunken mistake. It's repetition. That's betrayal with a schedule. What shredded me wasn't just the motel photos. It was a zip file I got at 2 a.m. from a number I didn't have saved. Inside, screenshots from a group chat. Name of the group, Weekend Wins. There she was, Emma, laughing over voice notes, dropping lines like he's actually hot, and sending blurry selfies of the motel corridor. The chat piled into eggplant emojis and finally replies. There were Venmo slips, $47.50 for coffee at 1:04 a.m., an Uber receipt at 2:17 a.m., a Starbucks order with a username that wasn't hers. One of her friends, Zoe, sent a private message that said, "We thought it would blow over. Sorry, I didn't mean for this to leak." Another left a voice memo where Emma said, "He actually listens to me. I haven't felt this in years." Reading that thread felt like having the floor pulled out from under every memory. The small domestic things, the inside jokes, the lazy Sunday, cooking fails, turned into stuff you could fold and put in a drawer. They didn't look like evidence. They looked like props in a set I'd been watching without realizing I was background. I could have blown up the place. I could have made a scene. I didn't. I wanted surgical. I wanted her to own where she'd stood. I printed the photos, the Venmo logs, the timestamps, the chat screenshots. I put them in a manila folder and slid it across our kitchen island like a slow verdict. She sat down. She put her face in her hands and started to say things that sounded rehearsed. "It's complicated. I don't know what happened. You're making this into something." I waited until the words exhausted themselves, and then I said, "Pack. Take what you need. Don't come back tonight." She sobbed. She called her sister. Her friends formed a small crowd on our street like a strange, sorry audience. One of them, Mason's girlfriend, yes, Mason had a girlfriend, came up and said nothing but handed me a folded note that read, "We didn't know how to stop it. Saw the... There was guilt in the note, but also a careless casualness that burned. She left with a black duffel and a pair of white sneakers. She mouthed, "We can work this out," through tears. I said, 5 days is not a thing you fix with promises. I mailed a ring. Not to her mother's address, in a plain box with a single line written on the card, "Not mine anymore." It felt petty and necessary. The ring was a geometric thing, small, heavy, and suddenly symbolic in the worst way. People ask if I posted the photos. I didn't. Humiliation is a bad currency. I wanted privacy, not applause, but I also wanted clarity. So I told the people who mattered, our parents, our close friends, the truth in a few short, hard conversations. Some of Emma's friends called and begged. Some of Emma's colleagues texted defensive blurbs. Most of them were quiet. Quiet says more than any plea. The next months were anticlimactic in the worst way. No dramatic courtship of me across rain-slick streets. No impulsive confession. Just paperwork, small acts of removal. Change the locks, cancel the joint Netflix, unfollow, block. Grind the life into pieces and decide what to keep. I did therapy because I didn't want to be a version of myself made entirely of resentment. Therapy gave me words that weren't just revenge. It gave me structure, why I ignored the signs where my boundaries had been elastic, what patterns I'd let pass. She went to a counselor too, then stopped going. That was a sentence in itself. There were moments that surprised me. An elderly neighbor left a lasagna with a note, "For when you forget to eat." A buddy from the office came over at midnight with cheap beer and a 2-hour tolerance for my silence. The human kindness didn't neutralize the betrayal. It warmed edges until they stopped cutting. People assume revenge is satisfying. For one night, maybe. I imagined posting everything online, watching 1,000 strangers nod. But I learned that revenge leaves you tired. Indifference is sharper. Cutting someone out of your life cleanly is meaner and simpler. Block the numbers, return the keys, let the echo finish. I started small projects to stay busy. Painted the spare room. Took boxing classes because exhaustion is more honest than rumination. I dated badly at first. One date asked about my job, another watched her phone the whole night. I learned fast to spot the red flags I'd ignored in my own relationship. A friend introduced me to someone named Naomi at a trivia night. She had crooked teeth and a laugh that made my shoulders drop from around my ears. We talked about stupid things until 2 a.m. and didn't mention exes. That was the important part. She didn't come with a backstory that needed tending. She came as a current thing, not a relic. Months later, Emma slid back into my feed occasionally. A story here, a tag photo there. She looked like someone trying to rewrite a chapter. I felt nothing explosive. Relief and a small, quiet anger that was more neutral than flame. You don't always want people to suffer. You want them to be honest. There are small rituals I still have to change. I automatically make extra coffee sometimes. I still reach for the chipped mug every third morning. Those little ghosts are stubborn. They fade, but they're not gone. You don't get a clean reset. You get a life where certain songs hit different notes. People asked if I'd forgive. Forgiveness is a personal, ugly thing. I forgave in the sense that I stopped rewinding, stopped letting the voice memos play like nails on a chalkboard in my head. Forgiveness doesn't mean trust. Trust is a fragile thing you can't rebuild without both parties putting a scaffold in place and staying on it. If you're reading this and thinking, maybe that's me, then don't wait too long. Ask the question. Look for the receipts, literal or not. Evidence isn't aggression, it's clarity. Protect yourself early, not because you expect betrayal, but because you owe yourself the truth. Don't be convinced by gaslighting or well-placed excuses. One cold Sunday, I found Emma at a small farmer's market. We pretended to not notice each other at first. When she did wave, it was small and awkward. I nodded and moved on. No grand scenes, no big moral, just a man who chose to keep walking. The best thing that came out of this was learning to be alone without hollowing out. The hollow was busy before, filling with routines and someone else's choices. Now it's quieter, and I have rooms that are mine again. I learned boundaries feel like scaffolding. Uncomfortable at first, but they let you build higher. So yeah, the "don't wait up" text was 3 words. My reply was a joke that became a detonator. But the real detonator was the little things she and her friends kept private. The late Ubers, the wrong receipts, the private jokes. It wasn't dramatic. It was choices stacked until the pile toppled. If you want to take away, don't confuse kindness for weakness. Don't ignore your gut to avoid drama. Ask the ugly questions, get the receipts, and then decide what you want. The cleanest revenge is the life you build after.